So I am a firm believer that if you understand how something works in knitting, then if you make a mistake and mess it up, you will be much more able to recover, fix it, and move on because you know what's going on. And one of the elements of knitting that I feel should really be more widely understood is the heel flap. This is a method of doing a heel on knitted socks, which is super prevalent. It's used in about a bazillion top-down sock patterns. So it's going to be really useful to understand how it's put together and why it works. Basically, the heel flap is a clever way to make a three-dimensional shape for your heel out of two-dimensional knitting. And the key thing to understand is that this is the shape that you are making. It's a top-heavy trapezoid on top of a square. And I know it looks ridiculous. How can this possibly make a heel? Well, like this. The square, and I'm actually going to turn this around so that it's as if your foot was facing this way. So your leg is this way and the ground is this way. So this square part is the back half of your leg, from the point of the top of your instep and down to the floor. And the trapezoid is the backmost bit of your sole right at the heel. So to show you what it looks like on a real sock, now this is ribbed, so it kind of like doesn't exactly make a square because it's not all nice and stretched out like stocking stitch would be, but basically this is the square. And then this, you can see this whole thing is the sole. This is your trapezoid at the sole, right at the back of the heel. So to go back to our ridiculous shape again, it comes together like this. Just to show you, three-dimensional. So let's see how this is accomplished. So first we've got this square part. That is what's called the heel flap. So what's happened is that you've been knitting the leg in a tube from the top down. And then you get to the top of your instep and you're ready to stop making the leg and start doing the heel. And that's where you put the instep half of your stitches on a holder that's the front of your foot. And then you start working flat on the half of your stitches which wrap around the back of your foot. And that's these stitches right here. So you start working flat on these stitches, back and forth, all the way up until you've made a square. Once you're at the top of the square right here, that's when the magic begins. So for your next move, you're going to knit to the middle of your stitches and then go a little further and stop. You turn the work, and again, you're still here. And then you go back the way you came, knitting to the middle of the stitches, and then again knitting a little bit further. In fact, you're knitting the same amount of little bit further as you did the first time. So these stitches that you're working on are actually centered in the whole square. Okay, and then again you stop and turn the work. You have now made the base of your top heavy trapezoid. So that's these stitches right here. And actually, because you've only knit about this much, this is what your shape looks right now. You've got these stitches in the middle that you've only worked 2 rows on, and then you've got everything else, okay? These are your trapezoid stitches, and these are the stitches at the top of the square on either side of the trapezoid stitches, and they're still on your needles. You just haven't worked them for the last 2 rows because you've been working on the base of the trapezoid. So from here on in, we are going to keep knitting back and forth, but we're going to work a little further each time on the trapezoid to make that trapezoid shape, to make this angling out. But the kicker is, and what makes this turn into a three-dimensional shape, is that the stitches you're going to use in order to work a little further each time are these ones at the top edge of the square on either side of your trapezoid. So here is what's going to happen. Your first row, after you've made the base of the trapezoid, you're going to work across to this point right? That's where your trapezoid stitches end. Then you're going to use these top of the square edge stitches to go a little bit further. You're going to use probably about 2 of the top of the square stitches, thus essentially joining the beginning of the angled side of the trapezoid to the flat top edge of the square. And actually, heel flap patterns will ask you to do a decrease at this point over the gap to make it all come together nicely. So to simulate this, I'm going to use a safety pin to join my 2 edges together to represent the knitting a little further to make my trapezoid. So once that's done, you turn the work and go back the way you came. Again, you're going to hit the end of your trapezoid stitches right here, but you know you want to go a little further to make this angled shape. So you're going to use, again, stitches, a couple of stitches from the top edge of the square in order to go a little further. And again, there's going to be a decrease. And again, I'm going to simulate this by using a safety pin. Come on, there we go. And then we turn the work and we go back again. And again, now the new edge of your trapezoid stitches is here. But again, that's not enough because we're still trying to angle out the trapezoid shape. So you move a little further, using again more stitches from this top edge of your square. And again, I'm going to use a safety pin to simulate the joining. Okay, and then I turn my work and I go back again. And you're just going to do the same thing, going back and forth, going further and further with your trapezoid stitches every time and joining the angled side of your trapezoid with the top edge of your square. Until all of the top of the square stitches have been used up. So we're almost there. Turn, go back again, go across your trapezoid, and then you're going to join the last of your stitches. It's going to be tricky to get it right in the corner. Okay. And again, go across, do our last join, which mimics using up all of the square top edge stitches. Come on. There we go. And what we end up with is a 3-dimensional shape. You have knitted a square, and then after your square, you knitted a trapezoid. But as you knitted the trapezoid, you were joining the angled sides of the trapezoid with the left and right sides of the square. And so you now have a 3-dimensional shape which resembles the shape of your foot's actual heel. And you can see a heel can just nestle right into here. And that is how the heel flap works.